Today, we are heading to southern Africa, to a magnificent, ancient city. But this isn't just a story about old stones. It's about an origin story that was buried under a mountain of controversy, pitting colonial prejudice against cold, hard, archaeological fact.
So just look at this. What you're seeing is a breathtaking complex of massive stone walls. It's actually the largest of its kind in all of pre-colonial southern Africa, an absolutely incredible feat of engineering that just stood there, silent, for centuries, pretty much waiting for its true story to finally be told.
And it all comes down to this one simple question. But this question, it ignited a really fierce debate. The answer, when people finally accepted it, didn't just solve some old archaeological puzzle, it helped an entire nation reclaim its identity and completely rewrite its own history.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the mystery, you first have to appreciate the sheer scale and, frankly, the genius of the city itself.
And get this, the clue is right there in the name. In the local Shona language, Zimbabwe literally means large houses of stone. And while this one is called Great Zimbabwe, it's actually just the biggest of more than 400 similar, smaller stone sites that are scattered all across the region.
The way it was built is, it's just a masterpiece. It's this technique called dry stone. The builders expertly cut and shaped these huge granite blocks to fit together perfectly, with absolutely no mortar to bind them. No cement, no glue, nothing. The fact that these walls are still standing hundreds of years later is just incredible.
All right, let's step inside the most famous part of the city, the Great Enclosure. This was the absolute heart of the kingdom, this huge, sprawling circular complex that is an absolute marvel of engineering.
And inside its walls, you find structures like this solid, 9-meter-high conical tower. Now, its exact purpose? Archaeologists are still debating it, but it was almost certainly a powerful symbol of the king's authority and his wealth. Basically a declaration of power, written in stone.
And speaking of scale, the main outer walls of the Great Enclosure are just immense. They soar up to 11 meters, that's 36 feet into the sky. To put that in perspective, that's like a 3-story building. Just imagine walking alongside a wall that high, built completely by hand.
Now, this whole city didn't just pop up overnight. Archaeologists have figured out it grew in stages. It seems to have started with the hill complex up top, probably as a spiritual center. Then the power shifted down to the Great Enclosure, which was like the royal palace. And all around it was the valley complex, which is where most of the people, maybe 10 to 20,000 of them, actually lived. But here's the thing. This huge, sophisticated city wasn't some isolated kingdom lost in the middle of nowhere. No way. Great Zimbabwe was a buzzing, powerful hub of international trade. So how did it get so powerful?
Well, it all came down to location, location, location. The kingdom controlled the flow of super valuable resources like gold and ivory from the African interior out to coastal trading ports like Sofala. And there, merchants from all across the Indian Ocean were waiting to do business.
And how do we know they were so connected? You just have to look at the treasures they found buried right there. We're talking about fragments of elegant porcelain from China, coins all the way from Arabia, beautiful glass beads from Persia. This place wasn't just a regional power, it was a serious player on the world stage. But it wasn't all about money and trade. The site shows a really rich local culture. Archaeologists found 8 of these incredible, unique soapstone birds. They're believed to represent sacred spirits or maybe royal ancestors. They're a beautiful testament to the kingdom's artistic and spiritual life, and today, this very bird is the emblem of the modern nation of Zimbabwe.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got this massive, wealthy African city with clear global trade links and a solid archaeological record. It seems pretty obvious who built it, right? So why on earth was its origin ever a mystery? Well, the answer, and it's an ugly one, is rooted in the deep-seated racial prejudices of the 19th century colonial mindset. The first European visitors who stumbled upon it just could not bring themselves to believe that local African people were responsible for such sophisticated architecture.
So to justify their own colonial ambitions, they just invented other builders. All these fantastical theories started flying around, attributing the city to literally anyone but Africans. Ancient Phoenicians, Arabs, even the biblical King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. It was a deliberate effort to erase local history because it didn't fit their narrative.
And you can literally hear the frustration, even back then. Listen to this from an early explorer, J. Theodore Bent, writing in 1892.
He was already completely fed up with all the romantic, baseless legends that were totally ignoring the evidence right in front of them.
But, facts are stubborn things, and rigorous science, well, it was about to come in and dismantle these colonial myths, piece by piece.
The journey to the truth, though, was a long one. It started with wild theories like Karl Marx back in 1871, but then real scientific excavations began. In 1905, an archaeologist named David Randall McIver was the first to state what should have been obvious. All the evidence pointed to a local Bantu origin.
But the real knockout punch to the myths came in 1929. An archaeologist named Gertrude Caton Thompson conducted these incredibly meticulous excavations, and her conclusion was definitive. As she put it, there was not a single item found that didn't support a local Bantu origin, proving the city was built by the ancestors of today's Shona people.
Okay, so with the truth finally established, a couple of big questions remained. Why was this great city eventually abandoned? And what does it all mean for us today? Well, it seems there wasn't one single reason for its decline around the 15th century. It was probably more like a perfect storm of factors. The global demand for gold might have dropped, crucial trade routes shifted further north, and the huge population may have just exhausted local resources. Power simply moved to other places. But its legacy is undeniable. After the country gained its independence in 1980, it proudly took its name from these very ruins. Today, Great Zimbabwe is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a powerful, profound symbol of national identity, and a source of immense pride in a rich, pre-colonial African past. The story of Great Zimbabwe is so much more than just archaeology. It's a powerful reminder that history itself can be a battleground, where the truth really has to be fought for. And it makes you wonder, what other stories from our past are still waiting for their true authors to be recognized?